Hello and welcome. My name is Dan Meyer. I'm editor-in-chief of RCR Wireless News. Joining me today on this Google Hangout is Joann Guo, who is an analyst at iPass, and also Sue Cummings Sr., who is the Senior Director of Marketing at iPass. Thanks for joining me today. Appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
Great. Well, maybe we'll start off with... Yes, thanks. Well, maybe we'll start out with, I guess, for those who don't know about iPass. I know you guys have been around in the space, the wireless space, the Wi-Fi space for quite a while. But maybe give a quick, Sue, you can give us a quick overview of the company.
Happy to. So iPass has been in the Wi-Fi space for about 10 years, and we have the world's largest commercial Wi-Fi network. And so, with that, we deliver mobility services for easy connectivity and roaming cost control. So we have a pretty unique position in the industry with that, very large global commercial Wi-Fi footprint. And in fact, it's much more than 50% larger than any other network. So we have a kind of a unique neutral position as the Wi-Fi market maker. And our customers are large enterprises and carriers. And so for them, because of the scale, we can create unique cost advantages. In fact, our enterprise customers include about 30% of the Fortune 500. So iPass is the largest generator of international Wi-Fi traffic in the world.
Got it. And obviously,
because of our unique position in the Wi-Fi.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add, we do, because of that unique position, we publish regular research reports like this cost index, and we publish a quarterly mobile workforce report, an annual mobile enterprise report.
Got it. Okay. And obviously, yeah, that's. I know you guys have a new report coming out on this topic as well. And obviously, you guys have been in the space for a while and handling Wi-Fi a lot. So I don't know if you guys want to touch a bit, maybe Joann, touch a bit on the report that you guys have coming out on some new findings that you guys have found.
Right. So the report that we just released it's called the iPass Wi-Fi Cost Index, and basically it really gives you a summary of how much a business traveler is being charged when they're traveling abroad, like how much data roaming costs are being incurred, and how much maybe Wi-Fi passes costs are being purchased at different retail venues. And this report is actually conducted on a yearly basis, and in order to really accurately reflect and capture how much business traveler they are being charged or how much costs they're incurring when they're traveling internationally. There are some key market analysis that goes into the report, and one of them is the retail Wi-Fi analysis, and this analysis is conducted by iPass internally, where we actually researched and gathered over 187 venues across 15 countries. And this basically gives us a good, summary of how much Wi-Fi cost is at hotels or at airport. Some of the sessions are summarized by per hour and per day. So this is pretty much captured in some of the figures that we have using as reference tables in our report. And the other piece is very interesting is that international data roaming analysis that we've also researched in iPass internally. And this is basically a market analysis of the retail plans offered by carriers worldwide. So I believe we've researched over 45 carriers worldwide, and the majority are in Europe and in North America and in Asia. And some of the really interesting findings we found is that, on average, plans that are domiciled in Europe, especially in UK, Spain, Sweden, so forth, are more expensive than other world region in terms of cost of data roaming. And this is probably also due to the recent European Union data cap that was enforced recently in July as well. So they're charging a higher cost when they're roaming within Europe. However, when they roam internationally, they're charging a lower cost when they're roaming within Europe, and when they're roaming internationally, the cost is a little bit high just due to sort of that they're charging a lower cost interregionally.
Yeah, gotcha. Interesting. So now maybe from Sue, I guess, what were some of the insights you found in the report that you found maybe most interesting and maybe most relevant to kind of this kind of growing Wi-Fi market when it comes to enterprise customers roaming around the world?
Well, I mean, a couple of findings that came out of it, and Joann is the person who can really speak to this in more detail. Joann actually conducted the research, and so she has great insight into this. There were a couple of kind of takeaways that we had. I mean, one is that basically there are no more kind of unlimited Wi-Fi plans. Yes, there are people who are grandfathered in on their existing plans, but they're really a thing of the past. Yeah. The thing about the research that we did was really designed to help give people real clarity around the true cost of mobility. So many companies that we talk to, these very, very large enterprises that we work with, they really have no real insight into the true cost of mobility, because a lot of these expenses, are buried in expense reports or departmental budgets or things like that. So that was really the goal of the research, to help people understand the true cost of mobility. And then, of course, in the way that we presented it, we basically detail out two scenarios. One is really for a U.S.-based business traveler who's traveling internationally, and then the other is a Europe-based traveler, both traveling within the EU and then traveling internationally as well. So really providing insight into the true cost of mobility. And then, of course, the report also provides a kind of a sense of, look, there are alternatives out there that iPass, for example, offers a real alternative to help companies contain the cost of mobility.
Gotcha. Well, I guess maybe touching a bit more on that research there. I mean, obviously, Joann, so you did a lot of reports here. I mean, have you seen what's, I guess, the biggest change you've seen maybe over the past couple of years when it comes to costs associated with this? It does seem like Wi-Fi is becoming more and more important to enterprise travelers, and obviously with international data roaming becoming more and more expensive, it becoming an issue for a lot of companies. I guess what's your general takeaway from the report that you found this year?
Right. So actually, both of the research is conducted last year as well. So we've actually analyzed some of the trend that were going around the market in terms of Wi-Fi, and one of the main trend that I've encountered is that there is a growing there's an increasing number of free Wi-Fi venues across hotels and airports. So, for example, a lot of the hotels from last year's market analysis did not offer, free Wi-Fi as a complementary of their stay for the guests. However, in this year, there are more and more hotels beginning to offer that. But the one interesting thing I would like to point out is that they also offer what's called a premium Wi-Fi. So although most of hotels offer free Wi-Fi, in the rooms and so far, but oftentimes the speed might be really slow, the connection might be unsafe, and so forth. So what they do is that they kind of offer like a tier 2 Wi-Fi on top of that for guests who would like, a faster speed and get connected more efficiently. So that's one of the more the interesting trend over the past year. And some of the other one is that there are a lot of different pricing option offered on smartphone versus tablet versus I think in the previous 2 years or so forth, there's only one price plan, right? If you're connected to your laptop, that's probably how much you will end up paying. But nowadays people might carry BYOD is sort of the trend right now, and they might carry more than like 2 or 3 devices across. So that's some of the other interesting thing I've found over the market analysis.
Interesting. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And obviously, like you said too, I mean, it's becoming so much more prevalent in hotels, and now airlines too are becoming more and more of a
right, with in-flight.
Yeah, exactly. That's becoming a bigger thing too. So it'll be interesting to see next year's report. I mean, not to downplay this year's report, but even next year's report, I'm sure will be even more interesting as well, as more and more places start to use and offer Wi-Fi to users. So I guess for myself, I mean, looking at this market, I mean, are you guys finding that that it's becoming, I guess, is it a more confusing market nowadays? Because again, more places are offering Wi-Fi, and it seems like consumers are becoming more and more aware of Wi-Fi. I mean, is there more confusion in the marketplace about, the free Wi-Fi, the pay Wi-Fi? Consumers seem to expect more and more Wi-Fi to be wherever they are. Are you guys finding, I guess, any confusion in the market or any challenges there when it comes to consumer perception of the Wi-Fi market right now?
Well, it's true. I mean, one of the things that this survey actually observed was that 82%, if I have that stat right, Joanne, correct me if I'm wrong, 82% of the mobile workers that were surveyed, do expect to use Wi-Fi first. They actually, prefer Wi-Fi over, over using their data roaming plan. But they do actually observe that it can be very limited, it's slow, it's going to be unreliable, and so public Wi-Fi and free Wi-Fi is a little bit of a Wild West environment. Some public hotspots do have serious quality and security issues, and Wi-Fi itself, iPass by itself won't solve that. I mean, although I will say that as a board member of the WBA, the Wireless Broadband Alliance, we're helping to contribute to the defining industry standards and the like. But that said, I mean, that really is where the iPass mobile network adds value for our enterprise customers and for our service provider partners and their customers, in that we provide access to quality commercial hotspots. Basically, what we're doing is we're aggregating more than 150 networks around the world from our partners like Deutsche Telekom, BT, China Mobile and China Telecom, KDDI, Zain. We have, as I say, 150 plus partners around the world, and we allow our customers and users to roam onto all of those networks with a high degree of confidence. And it's a much more unified, kind of experience. They basically can use their corporate credentials to log in across all of these networks, and they don't have to mess around with, giving up their, privacy, giving up, their email address or their Facebook account to get access, or having to watch an ad or things like that to get access to the free Wi-Fi. So anyway, that's a little plug for the iPass.
I mean, and that's a good point too, because it does seem like you said, it is a bit of a wild west out there still when it comes to Wi-Fi, because again, there is, that's the beauty of Wi-Fi, is that it is kind of something that anybody can deploy. They can have it open to anybody they want, but that also brings the challenges, which it does seem like a company like iPass or others out there who kind of aggregate these together and make it simpler with a single login type of thing. It kind of makes it not quite so wild west. And I guess maybe from the report, I'm sure you guys found that does make it an easier situation for users to kind of be able to access these services if it's an easier connection process.
That's right. Yeah, gotcha. Makes it very seamless. And at the same time, their company, their employer gets a level of confidence around security. They get visibility into usage, and obviously they get the cost control as well.
Gotcha. Now, I guess maybe another question I always have with this is, I mean, does it seem like, for a company like iPass, since you guys are working with so many different partners on this, is there a concern about the network quality aspect of it, and maybe any sort of impact that might have on the perception of the iPass service? Because obviously you guys are relying on your partners to provide the service, but the customers are going kind of through you to get to the service, so you guys are somewhat reliable or responsible for the consumer-facing aspect of it. Is there a concern at all there about making sure that consumers are having a good experience on these Wi-Fi networks?
Sure. I mean, it is part of the value that we provide. I mean, we are basically acting as that middleman who's keeping an eye on all those networks. When we see that somebody's not performing, up to the standard, we work to bring them up to the standard, or we, take them out of the network, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's definitely, a concern, and one of the, the areas that we're actively involved in kind of improving the experience.
Gotcha. And maybe a final question too, and this might maybe go to some of the research that you have, Joann, as well. Is I mean, recently in the cellular space, like T-Mobile, for instance, came out with kind of offering international roaming for free on some of the rate plans. It's obviously a slower speed type of offering, but I mean, are you guys seeing maybe any sort of impact yet from are cellular operators becoming a little more aggressive in this, trying to maybe get more traffic onto their own networks, or how do you see, I guess, these types of plans maybe impacting enterprise and consumer usage of Wi-Fi going forward?
You want to address that, Joann?
Oh yeah, sure. And so you can add on to the following. I think, these plans are become more popular and dominant as different sellers are trying to stay competitive in the market space. However, I don't think that's to say that Wi-Fi is no longer sort of be seen as a I guess a connectivity factor when they travel abroad, just because it's a lot more convenient to get connected via Wi-Fi, especially when you're roaming and traveling abroad. And you're more, I guess, you're more bounded to how much you're able to spend over sort of the Wi-Fi cost, right? Because you only get charged maybe on an hour or daily session pass and so forth. And what iPass provide, it's sort of like it's a lot quicker, it's a lot safer because we have like commercially footprint across the whole world and globe. But yeah, Sue, do you want to have anything to add on to that?
Sure. Well, as I said a minute ago, I mean, the research suggests that, better than 80% of users expect to use Wi-Fi first, and they're defaulting to Wi-Fi because of the bandwidth that they get, and particularly when you're talking about enterprise cloud apps and things like that that are very bandwidth intensive. Users they're sort of been trained to understand that they are going to have a better experience where they have, the bandwidth to support something like a unified communications app, for example, that's really going to need, a lot of speed.
Yeah, that would make sense.
And to just kind of add on to that, a recent report done by Informa Mobility suggests that over 76% of data consumed over on smartphone tablet are via Wi-Fi. So, I mean, that's kind of just, says a lot about the importance of getting connected to Wi-Fi and how end users really perceive connecting to Wi-Fi versus going connected over 3G data or 4G.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you're right too. And obviously, with Wi-Fi networks, most of them at least providing, definitely a higher speed service than what you get on a cellular connection with a 3G or even LTE. It does seem like Wi-Fi, and kind of to Sue's point, it does seem like for enterprise customers, especially, who are using high capacity and high download needs for the applications and their use, it seems like Wi-Fi still seems a pretty smart bet for them at least. So it should work out well. So. Well, hey, again, guys, I appreciate the time today. Obviously, the report's coming out, and so people should check that out as well. But again, Joann and Sue, thanks so much for the time today. We appreciate it, and hopefully we'll talk to you guys soon.